Sometimes your whole life changes in the 5 seconds after someone looks at you differently. The soft music of the string quartet drifted through the massive glass ballroom overlooking Napa Valley, mixing with the quiet clinking of champagne glasses and expensive laughter. Crystal chandeliers reflected golden light across tables covered in white roses worth more than most people's rent. Claire Bennett tried not to stare at any of it. She didn't belong here. Not with her faded overnight bag hidden beneath the bridesmaid's table. Not with the tiny run in her nude heels she'd covered using clear nail polish in the hotel bathroom 20 minutes earlier. She tightened the ribbon around a bouquet of ivory roses and forced herself to breathe. Just survive the night, she whispered under her breath. Her older sister was supposed to be here. Her older sister was supposed to walk beside the bride, smile for photos, drink expensive champagne, and pretend everything in life was perfect. But 3 days ago, her sister disappeared after finally leaving a toxic boyfriend, and Claire had stepped in at the last second to avoid ruining the wedding. She needed the money too badly to say no. $2,000 for one weekend as a replacement bridesmaid. That money would help cover another hospital bill for her mother. So Claire smiled even when her feet hurt. Even when the rich guests barely looked at her. Even when she overheard someone whisper, "She's obviously not from their world." Then everything went wrong. One careless turn. One server brushing past her shoulder. One startled gasp. Red wine splashed across the front of the bride's custom silk gown like blood across fresh snow. The entire ballroom froze. Claire's stomach dropped so hard she thought she might faint. "Oh my God," the bride whispered in horror, staring at the stains spreading across the fabric. A woman near the front gasped loudly. That dress cost $80,000. Suddenly, every eye in the room landed on Claire. Heat rushed into her face. "I'm so sorry," she said instantly, kneeling beside the dress. "Please, I can fix it. I know how to sew. I can clean it. Do you even understand what you just ruined?" Another bridesmaid snapped coldly. Claire's hands shook as she grabbed a napkin, gently blotting the stain while cameras from nearby guests began turning toward her. Her chest tightened. She could already imagine security escorting her out. She could already hear the phone call telling her mother the hospital payment would have to wait again. Enough. The deep male voice cut through the ballroom like silence after thunder. Claire slowly looked up. Ethan Calloway stood near the dance floor in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo, his expression unreadable. Everyone in America knew his face. Billionaire, founder of Calloway Global. The man business magazines called cold, ruthless, untouchable. But Ethan wasn't looking at the ruined dress. He was looking at her, directly at her. Claire swallowed hard as he stepped closer. The room stayed silent, waiting for him to explode. Instead, Ethan crouched beside her on the marble floor. "Are you hurt?" he asked quietly. Claire blinked in shock. What? "Your hand," he said softly, noticing a thin cut near her finger from broken glass. "You're bleeding." And for reasons Claire could not explain, the moment Ethan Calloway looked at her like she mattered more than the disaster around them, something inside both of them changed forever. The ballroom slowly began breathing again, but the tension still clung to the air like smoke after a fire. Claire pulled her trembling hand back instinctively, embarrassed by the tiny streak of blood across her finger. "It is nothing," she whispered quickly, trying to stand. But Ethan reached for a white linen napkin from the table beside him before anyone else could move. "Hold still," he said calmly. His voice was low, controlled, the kind that made people listen without realizing they were obeying. Claire froze as he gently wrapped the cloth around her hand. Around them, wealthy guests exchanged stunned looks. Nobody had ever seen Ethan Calloway kneel for anyone, especially not for a replacement bridesmaid, standing one mistake away from humiliation. "Ethan," his mother said sharply from across the ballroom, clearly uncomfortable with the scene. "The ceremony starts in 10 minutes. He did not even look at her. His eyes stayed on Claire. "The dress can be repaired," he said simply. "The wedding is fine." One of the bridesmaids crossed her arms. "That gown took 6 months to make." Claire swallowed hard, shame flooding her chest again. "I said I am sorry." And she meant it. Ethan interrupted before anyone else could speak. Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Then the bride finally exhaled shakily and nodded. "Just, please help me get changed." Relief nearly made Claire dizzy. "Of course," she said softly, quickly following the bride toward the private bridal suite. But before she disappeared behind the hallway doors, she glanced back once. Ethan was still watching her. Not with anger. Not with pity. Something else. Something warmer. Something that made her pulse unsteady. 20 minutes later, the wedding ceremony began beneath thousands of hanging fairy lights overlooking the vineyards glowing under the California sunset. Guests smiled again. Champagne flowed again. Music returned. But Claire could still feel Ethan's eyes finding her every few minutes from the front row. It unsettled her more than the disaster itself. Men like Ethan Calloway did not notice women like her. Men like him married women with family money, perfect hair, and last names printed in magazines. Claire Bennett was a woman working 3 jobs and sharing a 2-bedroom apartment with her sick mother and younger cousin. Their worlds were not supposed to touch. Yet every time she looked away, she felt him looking again. During the reception, Claire escaped outside for air. Cool evening wind brushed against her cheeks as she stood alone near the vineyard railing, staring at rows of grapevines disappearing into darkness. Her feet ached. Her shoulders hurt from tension. And for the first time all night, she allowed herself to breathe. You disappeared. Claire jumped slightly at the sound of Ethan's voice behind her. He stood a few feet away now, jacket unbuttoned, hands resting casually in his pockets. Somehow he looked less intimidating beneath the soft outdoor lights. More human. I did not think billionaires noticed when people disappeared, she said nervously. A faint smile touched his lips. I noticed. The answer came too quickly, too honestly. Claire looked down at the bandage around her finger. Thank you for earlier. Ethan leaned beside the railing, his shoulder almost brushing hers. You were the only person in that ballroom trying to fix the problem instead of protecting their image. That is because I could not afford $80,000. He laughed softly under his breath. The sound surprised both of them. What? She asked. Ethan shook his head slightly. Nothing. I just cannot remember the last time someone spoke to me without trying to impress me. Claire finally looked at him directly then, really looked at him. And beneath the expensive tuxedo, the perfect posture, and the billionaire reputation, she suddenly saw it. Loneliness. Deep and quiet. The kind that money could not touch. Claire looked away first because holding Ethan Calloway's gaze felt strangely dangerous. Not dangerous in the way people describe billionaires in magazines or business interviews. Dangerous because for one impossible second, she felt seen. The music from the ballroom drifted softly through the vineyard behind them while warm lights shimmered across the valley below. Somewhere inside, guests laughed over champagne and wedding cake, but out here the world suddenly felt quieter. Smaller. You should probably get back inside, Claire said gently, wrapping her arms around herself against the cool night air. People are going to wonder where you went. Ethan did not move. Let them wonder. Her heart skipped embarrassingly fast. She tried to ignore it. Men like Ethan probably flirted without even realizing it. You always talk like that? She asked nervously. Like what? Like every sentence belongs in a movie. A real smile appeared this time, brief but genuine enough to completely change his face. Claire suddenly understood why half the country found Ethan Calloway intimidating. A man that handsome was easier to fear than trust. You are honest, he said quietly. Most people are careful around me. Claire laughed softly. Maybe because most people know who you are before speaking to you. Ethan leaned slightly against the railing. And you did not. I knew your name. Everybody does. But honestly, she hesitated. I thought billionaires were older. Ethan let out another low laugh, shaking his head. That might be the first normal conversation I have had in months. Claire smiled before she could stop herself. The expression faded quickly when her phone buzzed inside her clutch purse. She glanced down at the screen. Hospital billing department. Her stomach tightened immediately. She declined the call before Ethan could notice the panic on her face. But he noticed anyway. Everything okay? Yeah, she answered too fast. Ethan studied her carefully, like he already understood she was lying. Claire changed the subject quickly. So why is someone like you hiding outside during his own sister's wedding? For a moment, Ethan said nothing. The distant sound of glasses clinking floated through the night air. Because everyone inside expects something from me, he admitted finally. Business favors, investments, appearances, perfect speeches. His jaw tightened slightly. It gets exhausting pretending all the time. Claire watched him quietly. Under the designer tuxedo and billionaire reputation, he sounded tired. Not physically tired. Soul tired. Maybe that is why you noticed me, she said softly before thinking. Ethan looked at her immediately. What does that mean? Claire swallowed, suddenly self-conscious. I mean, I was not pretending tonight. Her voice dropped almost to a whisper. I really was terrified. Something shifted in Ethan's expression then. Softer, warmer, like her honesty reached a place inside him nobody else touched anymore. Before he could answer, the ballroom doors suddenly burst open behind them. There you are, a tall blonde woman said sharply as she approached. Her diamond earrings sparkled under the lights almost as sharply as her expression. Claire immediately stepped back. The woman barely acknowledged her existence before focusing entirely on Ethan. Your mother has been looking everywhere for you. Investors from San Francisco are waiting. Then her eyes flicked toward Claire's simple bridesmaid dress and bandaged hand. A slow, judgmental smile appeared. Oh, I see why you disappeared. Claire's face warmed instantly. Ethan's expression turned cold again so quickly it startled her. Vanessa, he said flatly, go inside. The blonde woman crossed her arms. You are missing your own family reception to stand outside with hired help. Claire felt the humiliation hit like ice water. She opened her mouth immediately. It is okay. Really, I should go back. No, Ethan's voice cut through the night. Calm, firm, protective. His eyes never left Vanessa's. You do not get to disrespect her. And for the second time that night, Claire Bennett realized Ethan Calloway was willing to stand between her and the rest of the world. Vanessa's smile disappeared instantly beneath Ethan's cold stare. For a few heavy seconds, nobody moved. The vineyard lights glowed softly around them, while distant music floated from the ballroom behind the glass doors, but the warmth of the night had vanished. Claire felt it immediately, the invisible line between Ethan's world and hers. Vanessa let out a quiet laugh that sounded more insulting than amused. You are embarrassing yourself over a bridesmaid you met 2 hours ago. Ethan's jaw tightened slightly. Go inside, Vanessa. Your mother is already furious. Then she can talk to me later. Claire's chest tightened. She hated this. Hated feeling like the reason tension followed him everywhere. Really, it is okay, she said softly, stepping back. I should get back to work anyway. Vanessa's eyes flicked toward her immediately. Exactly. Ethan looked at Claire then, and something in his expression softened again. You are not staff. Vanessa scoffed. Please. Claire swallowed, the humiliation rising in her throat. Before another word could be said, her phone buzzed again inside her purse. This time the screen showed her mother's name. Panic instantly replaced everything else. I need to take this, she whispered quickly, stepping away toward the darker edge of the vineyard. She answered immediately. Mom. Her mother's tired voice came softly through the speaker. Sweetheart, I am sorry to bother you during the wedding. Claire turned away so nobody would hear. You are never bothering me. A small cough sounded on the other end. The pharmacy called. Insurance still will not cover the new medication. Claire closed her eyes briefly. Of course. Something else. Always something else. It is okay, she whispered quickly. I will figure it out. Claire, her mother hesitated. You already work too hard. Claire forced a smile her mother could not see. I am fine. Really. But when the call ended, she stayed standing there for a moment, staring out across the dark vineyards while pressure slowly built behind her ribs. She was tired. Tired of pretending she could carry everything alone. Tired of smiling through fear. You do that a lot. Ethan's voice came quietly from behind her. Claire quickly wiped beneath her eyes before turning around. Do what? Pretend you are okay when you are not. Her breath caught slightly. Ethan stood a few feet away holding 2 untouched glasses of champagne. He offered her one gently. Claire shook her head. I do not drink at weddings. Why? Because somebody has to stay responsible. A faint smile touched his face again. That sounds practiced. It is. For a moment neither of them spoke. The wind moved softly through the vineyard rows behind them. Somewhere inside the ballroom, guests cheered loudly for the couple's first dance. Ethan looked toward the sound briefly before glancing back at Claire. Do you want to know something terrible? Claire raised an eyebrow cautiously. That depends. I almost skipped this wedding. She blinked. Your sister's wedding? I told my assistant to prepare a fake emergency meeting in New York. Claire stared at him in disbelief before laughing softly despite herself. That is horrible. Ethan smiled slightly. I know. So why did you stay? His eyes held hers for one quiet second too long. Because something unexpected happened. Claire's heartbeat stumbled. She looked down quickly, nervous warmth spreading across her face. Ethan noticed. Of course he noticed. Men like him noticed everything. But instead of pushing further, he nodded toward the ballroom doors. Come on. Where? There is a dessert table inside with miniature cheesecakes. Claire frowned in confusion. You are inviting me to eat cheesecake? You look like someone who forgot to eat dinner. Her stomach betrayed her immediately with a quiet growl. Ethan laughed softly under his breath while Claire covered her face in embarrassment. Okay, she muttered. That was humiliating. No, he said gently as they started walking back toward the lights together. Humiliating was red wine on an $80,000 dress. This is just honesty. And somehow, walking beside him beneath the glowing lights of Napa Valley, Claire realized it was becoming harder and harder to remember why she was supposed to stay away from him. The reception felt different after that. Claire noticed it immediately the moment she walked back inside beside Ethan. Conversations quieted. Eyes followed them across the ballroom. Some guests pretended not to stare. Others did not bother pretending at all. Claire could practically feel the whispers moving from table to table. Ethan Calloway does not walk into wedding receptions beside women like her. He certainly does not carry her plate from the dessert table because her hands are full. Yet somehow that was exactly what he was doing. This is ridiculous, Claire muttered under her breath as they stopped near a quieter corner table beside the dance floor. Ethan set down the plate holding miniature cheesecakes and chocolate-covered strawberries. What is? People are looking at us like we committed a crime. Ethan glanced around calmly before picking up a fork. People with too much money always need entertainment. Claire laughed softly despite herself. That might be the most billionaire sentence ever spoken. Ethan leaned slightly closer. You still say billionaire like it is an insult. Maybe because I grew up clipping grocery coupons while people like you bought private islands. To her surprise, Ethan smiled instead of looking offended. Fair. Claire shook her head, taking a small bite of cheesecake. The sweetness melted instantly, and she realized how hungry she actually was. Ethan noticed the expression on her face and looked strangely satisfied. See, he said quietly. Much better. Claire narrowed her eyes suspiciously. You enjoy being right too much. One of my worst qualities. How many are there? Ethan pretended to think seriously. According to the internet? Hundreds. Claire laughed again, more naturally this time. The sound caught him off guard. She saw it happen. The tiny shift in his expression whenever she smiled at him. Like he could not believe he was the reason. Before either of them could say anything else, a slow song began playing through the ballroom speakers. Couples immediately drifted toward the dance floor beneath the glowing chandeliers. Claire watched quietly as the bride rested her head against her husband's shoulder while guests clapped softly around them. Do you dance? Ethan asked suddenly. Claire nearly choked on her cheesecake. Absolutely not. That sounded personal. I have terrible coordination. I do not believe you. That is because you have never seen me near stairs. Ethan laughed softly again, and Claire realized something strange. He laughed more with her in 1 hour than he probably had the entire wedding. The thought made her chest feel warm in a dangerous way. She quickly looked down at her plate. You should probably dance with someone more appropriate. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Ethan's expression shifted immediately. Appropriate. Claire shrugged lightly, pretending the comment did not matter. Someone from your world. Silence stretched between them for a moment. Then Ethan set his fork down slowly. Claire. The way he said her name made her heartbeat stumble again. Calm. Focused. Intentional. You want to know the truth? She looked up carefully. Ethan held her gaze completely now. Everyone in my world spends the entire night trying to impress me. His voice lowered slightly beneath the music around them. You are the only person here who talks to me like I am just a man. Claire's breath caught. The ballroom suddenly felt too warm, too bright, too full of people. Ethan stood slowly and offered his hand toward her. Dance with me. Panic flashed instantly across her face. Ethan, one song. People are already staring. Let them. Claire looked at his hand for several long seconds while the music played softly around them. Somewhere deep down she knew accepting would change something. Maybe everything. And judging by the way Ethan looked at her now, he already knew it too. Claire stared at Ethan's outstretched hand while the slow piano melody drifted through the ballroom around them. Everything inside her said this was a bad idea. Men like Ethan Calloway did not belong in stories like hers. They belonged on magazine covers, inside black luxury cars, standing beside women with perfect lives and perfect last names. Not standing in front of exhausted bridesmaids with hospital bills hidden inside their purses. I really cannot dance, she whispered one last time. Ethan's eyes softened slightly. Good. Neither can I. Claire let out a nervous laugh before she could stop herself. Then, against every ounce of common sense she had left, she placed her hand in his. Warmth rushed through her instantly the moment his fingers closed gently around hers. Ethan guided her toward the dance floor beneath thousands of golden lights, while conversations around the ballroom visibly slowed. Claire felt every stare, every whisper, but somehow Ethan acted like none of it existed. Like the only person in the room was her. You know everyone is going to make this into gossip by tomorrow morning, she murmured as he placed one hand carefully at her waist. Tomorrow morning? Ethan asked softly. You underestimate rich people. They probably started 3 group chats already. Claire laughed again, and Ethan smiled like hearing it was becoming his favorite sound. The music slowed further as couples swayed around them. Claire tried to focus on counting steps instead of the way Ethan's hand felt steady against her waist. You are tense, he said quietly. I am trying not to step on your shoes. These shoes cost less than your earrings probably, she admitted before realizing how ridiculous that sounded. Ethan looked genuinely confused. I am not wearing earrings. Claire froze in horror before burying her face briefly against his shoulder in embarrassment. Oh my God, I meant cufflinks. Ethan laughed softly above her head, the sound warm and real this time. Relax, Claire. But relaxing around him was becoming impossible, especially when he looked at her like this. Especially when every few seconds she caught him studying her face with an intensity that made her chest tighten. Can I ask you something? Ethan said after a moment. Claire nodded carefully. Why were you really outside earlier? She hesitated. Fresh air. Ethan raised an eyebrow slightly. That was not the real answer. Claire looked away toward the glowing chandeliers overhead. My mother is sick. The words came quietly, honest before she could stop them. Ethan's expression immediately changed. Not pity. Never pity. Concern. I am sorry. Claire shrugged lightly, even though the subject hurt. It has been a rough year. Ethan stayed silent for a moment before asking softly. And you are handling it alone? Claire gave a small laugh with no humor in it. Who else is going to do it? Something about that answer hit him hard. She saw it happen behind his eyes. Like he recognized loneliness because he carried his own version every day. You should not have to carry everything yourself, he said quietly. Claire swallowed against the sudden emotion building in her throat. Nobody said things like that to her anymore. Most people only noticed what she failed to do. Bills she could not pay. Shifts she could not cover. Problems she could not solve fast enough. But Ethan looked at her like none of those things defined her. Like she was still someone worth protecting. The song slowly neared its end while soft applause filled the ballroom around them. Claire realized too late that she had completely stopped paying attention to everyone else. All she could feel was Ethan's hand still holding hers. Then suddenly bright camera flashes exploded nearby. Claire flinched instantly. 2 paparazzi photographers stood near the ballroom entrance, snapping pictures rapidly through the open doors. Ethan's expression darkened immediately. How did they get in here? He muttered under his breath. But Claire's stomach had already dropped, because now dozens of guests were staring openly at them. And for the first time that night, she realized what being close to Ethan Calloway could actually cost her. The flashes kept coming even after the music ended. Bright, aggressive, endless. Claire instinctively stepped backward away from the cameras while nervous whispers spread across the ballroom like wildfire. Ethan immediately moved closer beside her, shielding her partially from the photographers without even thinking about it. No pictures. One of the wedding coordinators snapped near the entrance, rushing toward security. But the damage was already done. Claire could hear guests murmuring behind her. Who is she? Another model? No, she was one of the bridesmaids. Ethan never brings dates. Dates. The word hit Claire harder than it should have. Because whatever this was between them, it had only existed for a few hours. A few impossible hours inside a world she was never meant to enter. Ethan turned toward her quietly. Are you okay? Claire forced a small nod, even though her chest felt tight. I should probably leave. His expression shifted instantly. Claire, I mean it. She glanced nervously toward the photographers still arguing with security. This is your world, Ethan, not mine. That does not mean you have to run from it. Easy for you to say. The words slipped out sharper than she intended. Ethan looked momentarily surprised. Claire immediately exhaled shakily and lowered her voice. You are used to cameras following you. She looked down at her simple satin dress. I am not. For a moment Ethan said nothing. The ballroom around them continued moving again, but slower now. Curious eyes still lingered on them from every corner. Come with me, Ethan said quietly. Claire frowned slightly. What? Just trust me for 5 minutes. Before she could argue, Ethan gently took her hand again and led her through a side hallway away from the reception, past floral arrangements, past kitchen staff carrying silver trays, past quiet marble corridors glowing under soft hotel lights. Claire's pulse raced the entire time. Ethan, she whispered nervously, people are going to think. I stopped caring what people think a long time ago. The answer came immediately. Honest. Tired. They finally stepped through a pair of glass doors leading onto a private terrace overlooking the dark Napa Valley hills. The noise from the wedding faded behind them instantly. Cool wind brushed through Claire's hair, while city lights shimmered faintly miles away in the distance. Ethan released a slow breath beside her. I used to come up here during family events when I was younger, he admitted quietly. Claire looked at him carefully. To hide. A faint smile touched his mouth. Exactly. She leaned lightly against the railing beside him. Hard to imagine someone like you hiding from anything. Ethan laughed softly under his breath, but there was sadness in it this time. You really do not understand who people think I am. Claire stayed quiet, letting him speak. My father built Callaway Global from nothing, Ethan said slowly. And from the time I was 12 years old, every room I entered came with expectations. His eyes stayed fixed on the valley below. Perfect grades, perfect interviews, perfect relationships, perfect future. Claire's chest tightened unexpectedly. That sounds exhausting. Ethan glanced toward her. It is lonely. The honesty in his voice caught her off guard again. Claire studied him quietly beneath the soft terrace lights. For the first time all night, he did not look like the billionaire from magazine covers. He looked like a man carrying years of pressure alone. You know what is strange? She said softly after a moment. What? Everybody in there looks at you like you have everything. Ethan held her gaze fully now. And you? Claire hesitated. The wind moved gently between them. I think you look tired. Something vulnerable flickered across Ethan's face then. Something real. Like nobody had ever bothered to notice before. He stepped slightly closer without realizing it. Close enough now that Claire could feel the warmth of him against the cold night air. Her heartbeat quickened instantly. Ethan looked down briefly at her lips before catching himself. The moment stretched dangerously quiet between them. Then suddenly Claire's phone rang again. And the second she saw the hospital number flashing across the screen, her entire world dropped. Claire answered the call immediately, stepping farther toward the edge of the terrace while fear tightened painfully in her chest. Hello. A nurse spoke gently on the other end. Miss Bennett, I am sorry to contact you this late, but your mother had another breathing episode about 20 minutes ago. Claire's stomach dropped. Is she okay? She is stable right now, but the doctor would like to adjust her medication tonight if possible. Claire closed her eyes briefly, already understanding what that meant. More costs. More bills she could not afford. How much? She asked quietly. The number hit her like ice water. Claire leaned harder against the railing to steady herself. Okay, she whispered, even though she had absolutely no idea how she would pay it. I will figure something out. When the call ended, she stayed still for several seconds, gripping her phone tightly while tears burned behind her eyes. She hated crying, especially here, especially in front of someone like Ethan. But exhaustion was slowly cracking through every wall she had built around herself. Claire, Ethan's voice came softly behind her. She quickly wiped beneath her eyes before turning around. I am fine. Ethan looked at her for a long moment. You really need to stop saying that when it is obviously not true. The kindness in his voice almost made everything worse. Claire let out a shaky breath. I cannot afford for my mother to get sicker. The words escaped before she could stop them. Ethan's expression softened immediately. What does she have? Lung disease. Claire looked down at her hands. She worked 30 years cleaning hotel rooms. Double shifts. Chemicals. No insurance most of the time. Her voice trembled slightly now. And now every medication feels like another impossible decision. Ethan stayed quiet, listening carefully. Nobody ever listened carefully anymore. Most people only offered quick sympathy before changing the subject. But Ethan stood there like every word mattered. "How long have you been dealing with this alone?" he asked quietly. Claire gave a tired laugh. "Long enough that I forgot what normal feels like." Something about her answer visibly affected him. Ethan looked away briefly toward the dark hills before. Speaking again. "When my father died, people kept telling me I was lucky because of the money." Claire looked up slowly. "But—" Ethan's jaw tightened slightly. "But money does not stop hospitals from feeling terrifying." Silence settled gently between them after that. Not awkward, just honest. Claire realized with sudden surprise that this was the first real conversation she had shared with anyone in months. No pretending, no forced smiles. Just two tired people standing beneath the California night, trying to carry lives that felt heavier than they admitted. Ethan stepped closer carefully. "Let me help." Claire immediately shook her head. "No, Claire, I mean it." Her voice came softer now, but firm. "I do not want money from you." Ethan studied her face quietly. "That is not why I offered." "Maybe not." Claire swallowed hard. "But eventually people always expect something back." The words hung painfully between them. Ethan looked almost hurt by that. "You think I would do that?" Claire shook her head quickly. "No. She struggled for the right words. "I cannot survive feeling like somebody rescued me." Ethan stared at her for a long moment beneath the soft terrace lights. Then slowly, unexpectedly, he nodded. "Okay." Claire blinked in surprise. "Okay. I will not force help on you." His voice stayed calm, gentle, but I am still not walking away. Her heartbeat quickened again at the quiet certainty in his words. Before Claire could answer, the terrace doors suddenly opened behind them. Vanessa stepped outside holding her phone with a sharp expression already waiting on her face. "Congratulations," she said coldly. "You two are officially viral." Claire frowned in confusion while Vanessa turned the screen toward them. There, splashed across celebrity blogs already spreading online, were photos of Ethan holding Claire during their dance. Headlines scrolled beneath the pictures in bold letters. "Billionaire heir caught with mystery bridesmaid at family wedding." Ethan's expression darkened instantly. But Claire barely heard anything after that, because one line underneath the article made her blood run cold. Sources claim the woman may have targeted Ethan Calloway for money. Claire stared at the phone screen while her pulse pounded violently in her ears. Sources claim the woman may have targeted Ethan Calloway for money. The words blurred together beneath the photos of them dancing under the chandeliers only minutes earlier. Her stomach twisted painfully. Vanessa crossed her arms with cold satisfaction. "Well, that escalated quickly." Ethan's expression hardened instantly. "Delete the article." Vanessa gave a dry laugh. "You think I own the internet?" Claire stepped backward slowly, humiliation flooding through her chest. Of course this happened. Of course the world looked at a struggling woman beside a billionaire and assumed the worst. Ethan reached toward her gently. "Claire, look at me." But she could not. Because suddenly every moment from tonight felt different now. Every stare, every whisper, every camera flash. "I should go," she whispered. "Do not do that." Ethan's voice stayed calm, but urgency crept beneath it now. Claire finally looked up at him, eyes shining with held-back tears. "You said you were tired of people pretending around you?" Her voice trembled softly. "Well, this is exactly why people like me cannot survive in your world." "People like you?" Ethan repeated quietly. "You mean honest people?" Claire shook her head immediately. "No, people without protection." The words hit harder than she intended. Ethan fell silent. Because deep down, he knew she was right. He could walk through scandal and survive it. She could not. One ugly headline could destroy the little stability she still had left. Vanessa glanced toward the ballroom impatiently. "The board members are already talking, Ethan. Your mother is furious." Ethan did not even acknowledge her. His eyes stayed fixed entirely on Claire. "I do not care about the article." Claire laughed shakily through tears she was trying desperately to hide. "That is because it is not your life being ripped apart online." Silence. Heavy. Painful. Ethan stepped closer carefully. "Then let me fix it." Claire's chest tightened again. "You cannot fix everything with money." "That is not what I meant." His voice softened. "Honest. Claire, I have spent years surrounded by people who wanted access to my last name, my company, my money." He swallowed once before continuing. "You were the first person who looked at me tonight and saw something else." Claire looked away immediately because hearing that hurt too much now. Maybe that was the problem. Ethan's expression fell slightly. You do not mean that. I do. Her voice cracked despite herself. Because for one stupid night, you made me forget reality. The wind moved softly across the terrace, while distant music still echoed faintly from the wedding below them. Ethan looked at her like he wanted to say something that mattered, something big enough to stop her from leaving. But Claire already knew if she stayed any longer, she would fall completely into him. And that terrified her more than the headlines. She stepped backward again slowly. My mother needs me. Ethan nodded once, pain visible behind his composed expression now. Then let me drive you home. Claire almost said yes. God, she almost did. But then she looked once more at the article glowing on Vanessa's phone screen. Gold digger. Mystery woman. Targeted billionaire. The internet had already decided who she was before ever hearing her name. Claire shook her head softly. Goodbye, Ethan. His face changed instantly at the word goodbye. Real emotion. Real fear. But Claire forced herself to turn away before she lost the strength to do it. She walked quickly through the hallway, past the glowing ballroom, past laughing guests, past the fairy lights and expensive flowers, and everything that suddenly felt like a dream she had no right to touch. Ethan remained standing alone on the terrace long after she disappeared. And for the first time in years, the billionaire who had everything realized something terrifying. The only woman who ever made him feel understood was walking out of his life before he even had the chance to fight for her.